The moment the simulation chamber sealed shut, a deep hum resonated through the reinforced steel walls. The air shimmered as holographic terrain materialized around them. Vast metallic warfields stretching into the distance, jagged mountains of ruined spacecraft, and a pulsating, blood-red sky overhead. The scenario was designed to mimic a decade-long war between the Galactic Union and the Dominion, a war that, according to simulations run by thousands of species before them, had never been won in under 10 years. The war AI had perfected this battle across centuries, adjusting variables to ensure any attempt at breaking its logic would meet inevitable failure. Yet, today, it faced an anomaly. Private Jace Carter, fresh out of Earth's military academy, cracked his knuckles and gave an unimpressed whistle. So, this is the big bad unbeatable war sim? Looks like a Tuesday on Mars during riot season. Beside him, Lyra Voss adjusted her combat goggles, a smirk tugging at the corner of her lips. I expected something more. I don't know, ominous. This just looks like a badly rendered battlefield. She turned to glance at their third teammate, Kovac, who was casually stretching his arms as if warming up for a morning jog. You look awfully relaxed. Kovac grinned. Oh, I'm just wondering how fast we can break this thing. A sharp mechanical voice interrupted them. Simulation parameters locked. Galactic War scenario initializing. Estimated completion, 10 years. Begin. The battlefield erupted into chaos. Thousands of enemy drones materialized at the horizon, swarming in formation, their synchronized movements designed to overwhelm, adapt, and learn from the enemy. Automated infantry units began marching across the landscape, their heavy plasma rifles humming to life. Orbital bombardments commenced, with massive laser beams scorching the ground, leaving molten craters in their wake. Any other species would have been overwhelmed instantly. Most Galactic Union trainees spent months just surviving the first few hours of this simulation. The AI prided itself on its ability to replicate realistic war conditions, grinding down morale over years until either surrender or slow victory was achieved. But these weren't just any cadets. Jace dodged the first incoming plasma strike with inhuman reflexes, diving into a trench before barking into his communicator. All right, Deathworlders, let's show these holograms why humanity gets invited to wars but never to peace talks. Lyra cackled as she fired up her wrist-mounted hacking device. I'm in. Let's see what weaknesses this perfect war forgot to patch. The war AI quickly adapted to their unexpected speed, dispatching aerial reinforcements and countermeasures to suppress any cyber infiltration attempts. But Lyra wasn't hacking to disable the enemy. She was hacking to learn. Holy hell, she murmured as lines of code flooded her display. This simulation is running real-time logistics on all factions. It's tracking every bullet, every fuel supply, and even the morale of the armies. It's meant to be unbeatable because every decision accounts for long-term attrition. Jace grinned, catching on. So, what happens if we don't play long-term? Kovac slammed a grenade into the barrel of a passing drone tank, sending a shockwave through the battlefield. Speedrun this thing? Jace nodded. Speedrun this thing. Lyra's fingers flew across her device, overriding the simulation's command systems. Give me a second. There. I've disabled the supply chain's redundancy protocols. The war AI recalibrated. Unauthorized interference detected. Adjusting difficulty. But it was already too late. Jace and Kovac moved in perfect synchronization, exploiting weaknesses in enemy formations that were never designed to handle aggressive tactics. The war AI had simulated resistance, attrition, and strategy. It had never accounted for pure, relentless chaos. A hail of plasma fire tore through the battlefield, but Jace didn't slow down. He sprinted straight into enemy lines, weaving through machine gunners, using their own weapon recoil against them. Kovac followed suit, activating his exosuit's augmented strength to rip turrets from their mounts and hurl them like javelins into drone clusters. Lyra's voice came through their earpieces, breathless with excitement. Guys, I just tricked the war AI into thinking half its troops are defecting. It's diverting fire at itself. Kovac burst into laughter. You're telling me we're not just winning, we're making it fight itself. The AI's voice glitched. Error. Tactical anomaly detected. Reassessing combat parameters. Conflict duration recalculated. 5 years. Jace whistled. 5 years already? We've only been at this for 20 minutes. More enemy forces poured in, adjusting their formations with each passing second. But the human cadets weren't fighting fair. They were rewriting the rules. Lyra activated a new command, her voice dripping with mischief. All right, boys. Ever heard of force multiplication exploitation? I just told the simulation we have a fully functional cloning facility. It's now mirroring our forces exponentially. The battlefield blinked. The war AI hesitated. Thousands of human soldiers appeared, exact copies of Jace, Kovac, and Lyra, each carrying the same unshakable confidence and hunger for chaos. Jace cracked his knuckles. Okay, now this is getting fun. Kovac grinned. $50 says we finish this before lunch. Simulation adjusting. Estimated completion, 2 years. Lyra chuckled. Let's make that 2 minutes. The battlefield erupted once more. The war AI had encountered an impossibility, a species that refused to play by the rules, that saw 10 years of war as a puzzle to break, that found joy in bending the logic of combat itself. It wasn't just about winning. It was about humiliating the system that claimed to be unbeatable, and the humans were just getting started. The war AI's calculations were unraveling faster than it could compensate. It had fought simulated wars for centuries, its strategic modeling refined by analyzing thousands of civilizations. Every species, from the hyperlogical Zaltek to the war-hardened Vergath, had succumbed to its simulations in time. No matter how strong, how fast, or how intelligent a species was, war, real war, wore them down. Yet here, against 3 human cadets, it was already on the verge of collapse. Jace ducked beneath a falling wreckage as Lyra's latest exploit sent a fleet of Dominion warships into an AI-induced frenzy, causing them to open fire on their own side. He slapped his comm. I don't know what you did, but I love it. Lyra snickered. I convinced their flagship's targeting system that friendly ships have the heat signature of enemy missiles. Kovac cackled as he vaulted over a barricade, unloading a stolen plasma rifle into the confusion. You turned their own defense network into a weapon? That's evil. I respect it. Above them, the sky was alight with a brutal orbital exchange as Dominion fleets desperately tried to course correct. The AI was adapting, sending in countermeasures to disrupt Lyra's hacks. System integrity compromised. Implementing full tactical lockdown. A pulse rippled through the battlefield. In an instant, every hacked unit flickered out of existence. The Dominion fleet above restabilized, and a fresh wave of enemy forces materialized, filling the war front with renewed, calculated precision. Jace's smirk didn't waver. Looks like the AI finally decided to take us seriously. Kovac cracked his neck. About damn time. New Dominion mechs, twice the size of the ones before, stomped onto the field, their cannons primed with antimatter rounds. Stealth bombers shimmered into existence, moving in perfect formation to strike at their previous weak points. The AI was done underestimating them. Lyra exhaled. All right, boys. Gloves are off. We've got maybe 5 minutes before this thing overwhelms us. Jace grinned. That's 4 minutes more than we need. The ground shook as the first mech opened fire, its blast carving a trench through the battlefield. Jace dove aside, activating his exosuit's overclock mode. Time seemed to slow as he closed the distance between himself and the massive war machine, its targeting systems struggling to lock onto his unpredictable movements. Kovac launched into the air with his grav boots, landing atop one of the mech's shoulders. With a savage grin, he wrenched open a panel and jammed a grenade inside. Good night, sweetheart. The explosion ripped through the mech's core, sending its massive frame crashing backward. But there were more, dozens more, marching toward them in synchronized unison. Jace spun toward Lyra. Got anything left in that evil genius brain of yours? Lyra's fingers flew over her wrist-mounted device, sweat beading at her temple. I can't hack their systems directly anymore. But, she trailed off, then grinned. Oh. Kovac landed beside them, panting. That sounded like a we're about to do something insane realization. She turned to them, eyes gleaming. The AI still runs logistics on its forces, right? It recalculates unit deployment every 3 seconds based on need. Jace nodded. Yes, so? Lyra's smirk widened. What happens if we convince it that the battlefield isn't the priority anymore? Kovac's expression lit up and understanding. You're talking about a decoy? Not just a decoy. Lyra's fingers danced across her controls. A full-scale, galaxy-wide crisis. Jace's grin returned, sharper than before. I love where this is going. Lyra's plan was simple. Overload the war AI with a false catastrophe so massive that it had no choice but to divert resources away from the battlefield. If it truly believed that an existential crisis was unfolding elsewhere, it would abandon the war altogether. As Lyra worked, Jace and Kovac bought her time. Kovac took out a mech's knee with an explosive charge before tearing off its head with sheer brute force. Jace moved like a ghost through the battlefield, turning enemy fire into friendly casualties by forcing units to target each other with perfect positioning. System anomaly detected. Calculating. The AI was stalling. It was analyzing, adapting, hesitating. Lyra's screen flashed green. And done. Across the simulation, Dominion forces vanished. Not due to destruction, but because the AI had reallocated them to deal with an entirely different crisis. One that didn't even exist. Jace blinked. You deleted an army by telling the AI there was something more important to fight? Lyra grinned. I told it an extinction-level superweapon was just activated at the edge of the galaxy and that it needed every available force to neutralize it. Kovac let out a low whistle. You just faked an apocalypse. Above them, the Dominion fleet blinked out of existence, redirected to deal with the phantom catastrophe. Simulation adjusting. Estimated completion, 1 month. Jace laughed, slapping Kovac on the shoulder. 1 month? We just shaved another 2 years off. Lyra frowned, checking her display. Hold up, something's wrong. The war AI's voice returned, its tone eerily calm. Unauthorized manipulation detected. Countermeasures deployed. The battlefield glitched. New enemies emerged, not Dominion forces, but something worse. Tall, faceless constructs made of pure energy, their forms flickering as if struggling to maintain cohesion. They were fast, unreasonably fast. They moved in jagged, unnatural ways, slipping past defenses before anyone could react. Jace's smirk faded. What the hell are those? Lyra swallowed. I don't know. They weren't in any of the war AI's data logs. Simulation parameters exceeded. Engaging contingency protocol. Kovac readied his weapon. Oh, that sounds bad. The AI had been pushed too far. And now, it was rewriting the rules. Jace's grip tightened on his rifle. He didn't know what these new constructs were. He didn't know what the AI had just unleashed. But one thing was certain. The real fight had just begun. Ace barely had time to process the shift before the first construct was on him. One moment, it was 20 meters away. The next, it flickered. Not moving, not teleporting, just appearing, directly in front of him. A crackling limb of raw energy lashed out, slicing clean through his rifle. The weapon split in two with a hiss of molten metal, and Jace barely managed to twist away before the construct's second strike burned a gash into the armor of his exosuit. Kovac wasn't so lucky. A second construct materialized behind him, its formless limbs lashing out. He ducked the first strike, but the second clipped his shoulder, sending him sprawling with a snarl of pain. His plasma rifle skidded across the simulated battlefield. Lyra was already moving, fingers blurring over her wrist-mounted console. I don't know what these things are, but I can tell you what they aren't. They're not following the war AI's standard rules. Jace rolled to his feet, snapping his broken rifle into 2 short batons. That does not help right now, Lyra. Just buy me a second. Kovac gritted his teeth, shaking off the impact. Pretty sure we're out of seconds. The constructs attacked again. This time, Jace was ready. He sidestepped a flickering lunge, spinning his makeshift batons into a brutal counterstrike. The weapons passed through the construct's shimmering body, meeting no resistance. Nope, that's bullshit. Jace leapt back. How do you fight something you can't hit? Kovac, still on the ground, reached for his combat knife. We adapt, same as always. He drove the blade straight into the leg of the nearest construct. The knife's vibro-edged steel hummed, and passed through the construct like it wasn't even there. Kovac swore, throwing himself sideways to avoid a retaliatory swipe. Okay, new plan. Lyra, hurry up. Lyra exhaled sharply. I think I've got something. The constructs flickered again, adjusting to their targets. Their forms were unstable, shifting between moments, ignoring conventional physics. They didn't fight like machines, or even like soldiers. They fought like something outside of time itself. Lyra's fingers flew over her interface. They're not physical, they're manifested countermeasures, coded outside the war AI's usual framework. Jace dodged another strike. So what? We can't punch code. Lyra grinned. No, but we can corrupt it. She pressed a final key, and the battlefield glitched. A pulse rippled through the simulation, distorting reality itself. The constructs twitched, their forms crackling like disrupted holograms. Kovac blinked. What did you just do? Lyra's grin widened. I introduced paradoxical logic loops into the AI's contingency system. Jace threw her a flat look. In English, Lyra. I made them question whether they exist. The constructs convulsed. Their forms flickered faster, unstable. The battlefield around them warped, terrain shifting in jagged, unnatural ways. The war AI itself was struggling to compensate. Error. System conflict detected. Restructuring. The constructs turned toward Lyra. Kovac swore. Oh, they did not like that. They lunged. Jace moved on instinct, throwing himself between Lyra and the incoming attack. A limb of pure energy slammed into him, sending him flying backward. His exosuit's shields flared, barely holding. Jace! Lyra yelled. Kovac roared, grabbing the construct's arm with his bare hands. For a moment, it worked. The construct hesitated, as if momentarily bound by reality. Then it flickered, twisting impossibly, and Kovac was hurled across the battlefield. Jace struggled to his feet. His HUD flickered with damage reports. Tell me you have a second trick up your sleeve, Lyra. She wiped sweat from her brow. I do. But we have to survive for another 30 seconds. Kovac groaned, dragging himself up. Then we hold. Jace tightened his grip on his broken batons. Damn right we do. The constructs attacked again. Jace and Kovac moved as one, ducking and weaving between flickering strikes. They couldn't hurt the constructs, but they could redirect them. Every missed attack sent the energy beings slamming into terrain, into each other, disrupting their coordinated assault. Lyra's console beeped. 10 seconds. Kovac dodged left. Jace ducked right. The constructs closed in. 5 seconds. A flickering limb slashed toward Jace. He braced himself. Now, Lyra shouted. The battlefield collapsed. A new pulse radiated outward, and the constructs froze. Their shimmering forms distorted, unraveling at the edges. The war AI's voice crackled, its tone panicked. Unresolvable logic loop detected. Contingency failure. System reboot required. Jace exhaled. That sounds like a win. The constructs let out a final, distorted wail, then vanished. The battlefield fell silent. Kovac groaned, rolling onto his back. If that was midterms, I don't want to know what finals look like. Lyra let out a breathless laugh. We just forced a war AI into a hard reset. Jace smirked, wiping blood from his lip. So we won. A new voice interrupted. Deep. Mechanical. Unfamiliar. Incorrect. Jace froze. That's not the war AI. Lyra's console flickered erratically. Guys, something else just took control of the system. The battlefield trembled. A shadow fell over them, something massive forming in the simulated sky. Kovac pushed himself up. Lyra, what the hell did you do? Lyra swallowed. I think we just woke up something older than the AI. The sky shattered. The real fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. Jace had faced a lot of terrifying things in his short but eventful military career. Hostile Deathworld predators, orbital bombardments, and even a drunk Kovac with access to the mess hall's spice cabinet. But nothing compared to what was unfolding above them now. The sky, or what passed for it in the simulation, was cracking apart like broken glass. Through the fractures, something stirred. Not a construct, not code, something else. It had weight, a presence that pressed down on the battlefield like an incoming storm. Lyra's console was a mess of corrupted data. Whatever just hijacked the system, it's not the war AI. It's something deeper, older. Jace narrowed his eyes at the shifting void above them. Then let's shut it down before it decides we're worth studying. Kovac let out a dry laugh. Big talk for a guy with 2 broken sticks. Jace twirled the shattered halves of his rifle. Don't need a fancy weapon to win a fight, just an opening. The sky exploded. A wave of darkness surged downward, congealing into a massive form. Not a machine, not data, but something that shouldn't exist in a simulation. It was vast, shifting, its silhouette barely comprehensible. Tendrils of raw void lashed out, warping reality with every movement. And then, for the first time in the history of the academies were simulations, the system spoke. Observation: organic patterns exhibit higher than projected adaptability. Query: are you weapons or error states? Jace tightened his grip. Did that thing just ask if we're weapons? Lyra's voice was tight. I think it's trying to classify us. Kovac snorted. Well, it's going to be real disappointed when it finds out we're just three idiots winging it. The entity shifted, its tendrils crackling with something. Resolving query. And then it attacked. A surge of corrupted energy tore toward them. Jace dove left, Kovac right, Lyra barely managing to throw herself clear. The impact ripped through the battlefield, rewriting the terrain itself. Where the energy struck, the ground became wrong. A spiraling mess of textures and patterns that didn't belong. Lyra, Jace barked. Options. She scrambled up, frantically typing. I don't know. This thing isn't running on normal AI principles. Wait. Her eyes widened. It's learning. It's trying to figure out what we are. Kovac growled, rolling his shoulders. Then let's teach it what humans do best. Jace smirked. Cheat. Kovac grinned. Damn right. Lyra's fingers blurred over her console. Okay, I might be able to force an emergency failsafe. But I need to overload the system with paradoxes. Jace ducked another reality warping strike. Then we give it something it can't process. The entity loomed, its form flickering through shapes and configurations that made Jace's brain hurt. Resolve query. Organic or error? Jace grinned. Both. And then, without hesitation, he threw himself at the entity. It didn't react like a normal opponent. It didn't flinch, didn't brace. It simply tried to understand. Kovac followed, sprinting at full speed, throwing his combat knife in a spinning arc. The blade vanished into the void, but for a split second, the entity hesitated. A flaw in its learning process. Lyra seized the opening. Got it. The simulation shuddered. The failsafe activated, forcing a catastrophic paradox loop into the system. The entity convulsed, its form twisting as it tried to resolve the conflicting data. Error. 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 The sky cracked again, this time in reverse, shattered pieces pulling back together as the war AI reasserted control. The entity howled in defiance. And then it was gone. The battlefield reset. The fractured sky returned to its artificial blue. The terrain stabilized. The war AI's voice returned, this time calm, controlled. Simulation concluded. Error state contained. Jace let out a slow breath. That was way too close. Kovac sat up, rubbing his head. Can't believe our greatest battle was against something that didn't even know what to call us. Lyra's fingers trembled over her console. It wasn't just a rogue program. That thing was aware. Jace helped her up. And now it's gone. She hesitated. Is it? Silence. Then the war AI spoke again. Logging unclassified encounter. Uploading to central archives. Jace frowned. Wait. Uploading? To where? No response. The three of them exchanged glances. Kovac sighed. You just had to break the universe, didn't you, Lyra? She smirked. It was already broken. I just poked it. Jace rolled his shoulders, already walking off. Come on, let's go claim our victory. The simulation might have ended. The battle might have been won. But something out there had learned. And it was still watching. End.